Hey everyone, Adam here, and I was doing a lot of thinking over the weekend about Linux and the state of where we are in the world of Linux. And I was really kind of thinking, people like to tout about how there is a lot of different variety and choices in Linux, but it seems like one of the reasons I don't like to do Linux installs and reviews as much as I used to is because it seems like they're all the same. They're either Debian based, or they're RPM based, which is Red Hat, or they're based off of, now Arch is becoming the popular one. So it just seems like everything, and it seems like mostly everything's Debian or Ubuntu offshoots. And it's kind of just getting a little monotonous. And these distros are popping up every night. You hear of a new one. So it's just like, it's kind of odd. And I think people start wooing and getting excited over a brand new distro. And then when you go to do the install, it's just a reskinned and rebranded Ubuntu with maybe an extra repository that gives you a couple extra features that you could actually install yourself if you wanted to, but they just did it for you. To me, I find that a little frustrating and a little, disappointing. So I went out to look for something different, something based on its own system that doesn't have a Debian or one of the three majors that we are familiar with as its backend, something different. And I found a Linux distribution that's been out for a few years called 4MLinux. 4MLinux is a really small, lightweight Linux distribution that uses compressed tar files for its package manager. Real simple. I'm not really 100% sure what all goes on behind the scenes for the packages, but it's definitely not using RPM or apt or pacman or even Zyper or whatever it is that SUSE uses. It's using its own thing, and it's kind of nice and refreshing to see that, but also there's some things about this distribution I don't like, which I'll cover in a few minutes. But the 4 M's stand for Maintenance, Multimedia, Mini Server, and Mystery. And Mystery is supposed to be the games that they've ported over for it. So let's take a look at it, and I'll kind of go over how I feel about it. I've already installed it once, so I'm going to do a fresh install so that you guys can see what it looks like to install. It's actually quite interesting. So I'm doing it in a virtual machine. It's my standard install image, except for I did 4 gigs of RAM instead of 8 because this is light. I gave it 4 processors, 128 megabyte 3D accelerated video card. It's pretty standard for what I do, with the exception of a little bit less memory. So we're going ahead and do a live boot off of the CD. Okay, so we're booting up off the ISO image here, and we're going to go ahead with M4Linux with the default display. And it had a legacy installer, it says for old PCs, but I'm not sure what that does. But you'll see that it's installing tar.xz files. This is actually part of the live system and how it handles its packages. It's called add-ons. It's quite interesting. I've never really seen anything like this, and it's different. That's why I wanted to show the boot up and the install process so that you guys could see that this really is a different beast. So it defaults to 1024 by 768 resolution, and I was unable in the past, to set the display to be anything higher. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. But it's a basic desktop. The desktop manager for this is called JWM, and it seems to have GNOME stuff in the background, and it's a real lightweight, simple desktop. So the way to install this is the first thing you need to do is manually partition your drive, and it wants one partition, which I found kind of interesting. Actually, I think they have a GUI partitioner, so we'll go to here, maintenance, and partitions, gparted. So we'll use gparted for this. Okay, so we're going to create a new partition. No partition table found, blah, blah, blah. Partition table is required before partitions can be added. To create a new partition table, choose the menu, device, create partition. Devices, SDA, create partition table. I'll just leave it DOS. So it's bootable. Now we'll do new, and we'll say, we'll just leave it at what it is. So an add ext4, and I think we just hit apply, and it should have already formatted it. And save details, save, close. There we go. Now we have our partition. So now we go to the little footprint menu and we go 4MLinux and we do installer. And welcome to 4MLinux installation. See, it's not even a graphical installer. It's a text-based installer. Hit enter. It finds our partition. We say there. And it is recommended to format. Yes. Is 4MLinux the only? Yes, it is the only operating system. A bootloader will be installed for you. You need this to boot your new. Yes, yes, yes. Enter. Summary of changes. We agree to it. And it copies the files over and it's done. It's literally that fast. So at this point, we can go ahead and close out of that. And we want to go to, we want to shut down. No. Power off. Yes. And before we reboot, we want to go into our settings in our VM and unmount the CD-ROM so it doesn't boot off CD-ROM. Remove this disk. Okay. So now we'll boot up off the system. I swear this is probably the fastest install I've ever seen. There's been no fast forwarding in this. Also notice it's not using Grub or Grub2. It's using the old school bootloader called Lilo, which is kind of nice or different. I don't know if that's nice. There's a reason why we switched away from Lilo. Mostly it's to support multi-OSs and dual booting, but you can dual boot in Lilo too. And there it is. Now it wants to change the root password. Tells me it's too weak. I don't care. It's a test box. But here's the thing I ran into last time. Oh, it didn't do it. Last time I did this, it didn't require me to do a password, but so it was weird. Okay, so here we are. It's a non-graphical install of Linux. What do we do? Well, you know, it took a quick Google to find out that we needed to run startx. Now, you might be thinking, but Fratum, it's running as root. Shouldn't we create a user? Actually, that's what's weird about this Linux distribution. It goes against the norms. No, don't create a user. This system uses BusyBox as the back end, and it's supposed to do some magic foo from what I read. When you install a package, it installs it as a user of that package name, and the package runs as that user from what I understand reading their forums. It wasn't clear, but they assure you you run this as root. I personally do not like that, and that would take this distribution out of the running for me as a distribution to run, because running as root just is scary, and it's something you're taught from day one not to do in Linux. Okay, so now here we are. The time is wrong. Let's see if it'll let me change my time zone. I'm going to 4MLinux maintenance settings, local time. Okay, 4MLinux will synchronize time with a time server. Enter. I'm in North America, 49 United States, and then it'll say I'm in Pacific time. And there we go, 9:25 p.m. That is correct. So we just set our time. Now, it doesn't come with a whole lot. And remember, this is called 4MLinux. Well, here's your things. Internet. Well, that's not an M. Okay, we got maintenance. That gives you your backup, recovery, wiping, files, your file manager, Midnight Commander. Haven't seen that in ages. CD, DVD, burners, partitions, monitoring. And then you have multimedia. That's your video players, etc., etc., etc. Mini server, these are little server tasks such as FTP, HTTP, and mystery is games. There's a few games installed. Actually, none of this stuff is installed. It just looks like it is. So if you go to run it, it'll actually want you to install it. So another thing, it's running Docker or Docky for the Doc Manager, and it's got all these tools. It's got, or Conky, excuse me, it's running Conky. Or is Conky this thing? I think this thing's Conky. Sorry, guys. So webcam, screen recorder, screenshot, video player, audio player, email, browser. Here's the thing that blew me away. Web browser. It's running Lynx. That's crazy. And this Lynx supports graphics. I've never even seen Lynx support graphics. That kind of blew me away. Images. I mean, you can't do YouTube on this thing. So if you go to my website, which redirects you to YouTube, that's what YouTube looks like. That's pretty weird, right? Okay, so you might think to yourself, well, that's useless. Well, you can go to this thing called extensions. And that's what their packages are called. Extensions or add-ons. And you can install Chromium. So you go to NetApps and Chromium, and it'll say this will download and install Chromium. Yes. And it's pretty quick. Installs in an opt. I haven't tested the theory that Chrome runs as a user called Chromium. We should test that. So now we have YouTube. And it's working. There's my ugly intro that I need to change one of these days. So we got a modern browser. We'd have to change this link because it's still going to load links. Oh no, look, it loads Chromium now. Hey, I stand corrected. So here's what I want to do. Let's load a terminal. We're root. It's running a 4463 kernel, which isn't too bad. Let's load this up. Let's see. Grep Chromium. Yeah, see, it's running as user Chrome. So even though you're logged in as root, apps and everything run as specific users. And I believe each app you install gets a user with it. So that app will run as that user. So when you run Thunderbird for mail, it'll be called Thunderbird. That'll be the user. So it's interesting. I've never seen a distro do this, and it's a neat way of doing it. I don't know if I trust it security-wise, just because, I don't know, it goes against everything I was ever taught about Linux. Don't run as root. Don't run as root. It's been pounded in my head for 25 years. So, anyways, this is a very lightweight. The ISO is just a little over 500 megs. So you can actually put this on an old school CD. I think what CDs are 500. Nah, they maybe not. But still, it's probably one of the smallest desktop distros I've seen in a while. I mean, I know there's others out there because I know I put a tiny Linux on my Chromebook when I hacked that. So I know there's small ones out there, but this one's pretty modern looking. And the thing I've read in the forums, and I haven't tested it because I didn't want to put this on real hardware because I didn't have any available to do it, is that I've heard some people have had issues with wireless cards. And there's obviously, there's no drivers. I don't know where to get drivers to make the video work properly full screen in VirtualBox. But I know I did see somewhere that there was a driver for NVIDIA but I just don't know where it exists. So that's it. 4MLinux. It's real simple. It comes with the tools, you need for simple web browsing. So if you have some like old hardware and you need a fast OS, this is probably the one you'd want to go with, or something similar. If you don't have issues with the running as root or logging in as root like I do. I mean, it just bugs the hell out of me. I don't know if you can tell. But I wanted to give this a look, and I wanted to show you guys that, hey, there are alternatives out there, and I'm going to look for other Linuxes that aren't based on the, the four big guys, so that we can see what choices we have when we decide to go for, see, like gpicview is a GNOME. I think that's a GNOME tool. Maybe not. So anyways, I'm sorry. I'm getting distracted by my own thing. Anyway, so that's 4MLinux, and it looks neat. The forums are active, and they're actively releasing updates, and it's been out for a few years, and their support seems okay. I mean, I didn't dig into it too much, but there's a couple things I would like to see. Is one, they don't have MD5 sums on their website, and after the fiasco with Cyborg Hawk Linux or whatever that was called, I look for MD5s now, and I couldn't find an MD5 sum for this. So I don't know even what to say about that, except for it would be a responsible thing for the developers of this OS to release the MD5 sums on a separate server so that they're protected from being hacked. I don't like the fact that Lynx is the default browser. I think if you were a new user and you saw this and you wanted an easy to use, easy to install, really lightweight Linux, and you install it and you go and press the browser button and Lynx comes up, I think you're going to be disappointed until you figure out how to install an actual browser. So I think they should be doing Chromium as the default browser as part of the install. The desktop is nice. What do you expect from something so tiny? It does what it needs to do. And I could see this being put on a repurposed Chromebook. A matter of fact, if I still had my Chromebook, I would probably put this in here. And the games that they have are, interesting, that they've got some of the old and cool. See, they got Doom, Heretic, Hexen, Quake 1. I mean, those are old fun games from they have Doom 1 and Doom 2. Those are old fun games from the old days of Linux that just, kind of miss playing those, and I never think to install them on my current systems because they're just so old. So that's basically it. A very lightweight Linux. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Thanks a lot, and take care.